This exercise is called seated spine circumduction. I prefer to use a block to sit on, so I've placed my block horizontally across, and I'm going to just come and sit with my legs in a cross-legged position to feel tall in my spine. I don't have as mobile hips or as open hips as a lot of people may have. So I find that for me to specifically work my spine, I prefer to sit on the block just to be able to give my pelvis a little bit of a release. It helps me be able to tap into my spine in a better way. If you prefer to sit on the floor and you've got fairly open hips, that's entirely up to you. But what we'll do is we'll do one sort of direction, and then as we change directions, we're going to switch the cross off your legs. This is a functional movement exercise that's designed to help you build mobility, strength, and good posture in your spine, starting from the pelvis all the way up into the cervical spine. So primarily what we're doing in this circumduction, in this exercise, is circumduction. Now, they're not sort of pelvic rolls. So a lot of the time I'll see people kind of rolling into their hips and rolling into their pelvis. That's a completely different exercise. What we're doing in this exercise is literally using our spine and our rib cage like a wooden spoon being stirred in a massive sort of bowl. So you can see here how different this movement looks compared to this movement. Okay, we're not moving from the hips and we're not moving from the pelvis. So what I like to do is I like to have one hand just on my sternum, which is like more towards the chest area, and one hand more towards my belly. And what we're doing is we are literally feeling like you're barrel rolling into the rib cage. And this is what we call circumduction. So we are just really small movements, forwards, back, round and down, extension here, flexion here, lateral shift into your extension. And I'm going to the right side first, and then I'll move to the left. And you should kind of feel like someone's winding you. So if you try to speak and then you flex and come into extension, it should feel quite difficult to breathe and speak at the same time. And that's a really good indication that you're using the rib cage and therefore sort of circumducting the spine. And then once you get into that sort of rhythm, just relax your hands and see if you can just articulate this movement. Inhale and go forwards. And back. You can do 15 in one direction and then switch. And then we're going to switch the cross of our legs going off to the right side. I find this side immediately harder, even just to sit in this cross-leg position with my right foot forward. It's very odd. And then we're going to go right side chest forwards, back, round and down. And then as you get a little bit more comfortable, you can just let the spine of the cervical spine just kind of follow. Good. Those are called seated spine circumduction. So really feel like you're just able to flex and extend in this drill, and you should feel like there's something really sort of happening in your midriff and into the chest, the rib cage, and then somewhat down the sort of lateral parts of your spine. This exercise is called standing spine rolls. Sounds a bit like sushi. But essentially what we're doing is we are starting in a standing position for this drill, standing feet hip distance, maybe slightly wider than hip distance, just not by much, not in a sort of wide position, just slightly wider than hip distance. Just gives yourself a little bit more space as you come into an anterior position as you reach down to the floor. I'm going to sort of do a few with my body side onto the camera, and then I'll do a few sort of with my front onto the camera, just so you can get both angles. And essentially what we're doing in this drill, it's a functional movement movement drill that's designed to help us build better posture, better sort of mobility, malleability in the spine, as we then also strengthen the muscles around the glutes, the hamstrings, and in our hips and our feet as well. You've got to learn to take this exercise slow if it's the first time that you're doing something with the spine, because sometimes people can get a little bit dizzy. You can get a little bit sort of bendy and compensated as you're reaching down to the floor. So be very, very aware, but also take this at your own pace if it's the first time you're doing something like this. So as we sort of prepare the body, all you're going to do is simply tilt the head back, inhale. We're not flopping the head back. I want you to actually feel like you're reaching the chin up towards the ceiling here, creating length into the front of the neck flexors. And then as you exhale, really feel like you're bringing the chin down towards the throat. You should start to feel the sort of neck muscles release in the back there. And then start to really feel like you can round forwards and down. From here, what a lot of you will start to do is start to sort of throw your legs back and your femurs backwards like so. And this will mean that your butt starts to go behind your ankles. Essentially, if that starts to happen, take the feet a little bit wider and really feel like you're just going down towards the floor, trying to bring your butt over your ankles as you reach down to the floor in a roll. Lifting up into the quads as you get further down to the ground. And release. And then rolling back all the way up into standing. Feel the push of the feet into the ground. And then you reach up in extension. Exhaling, flexion all the way down. This is where it gets hard. You want to feel the weight in the feet equal. Try not to push your bum back. Almost feel like you're actually taking your body weight forwards. This is a really good test of your pelvic function, but also your spine function all the way down. Here's where it gets a little bit difficult. Pull the femurs up and really feel like you're tilting your bum over the line of your ankles. Flexing down and then rolling all the way back up. Oh, after baby, this feels very difficult, but so good at the same time. And then exhale, chin down. I can feel the compensations in my body just as I'm flexing. I feel like my body literally like veers off to the right side, especially from this lower left sort of sacral area. I did have an episiotomy, which was on the sort of left side. And that's kind of caused me a little bit of like limited sort of function in my left side ever since I had the baby. So I'm very aware of the impact on my pelvis and my back area in the left side. And then all the way back up. Really feeling like you can release as you do each roll, coming all the way up into standing. I cheat a little bit there, so you really want to make sure that you stay in the flexion, even on the rise up. I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. Flexing all the way down, exhaling gently, tip your bum, feel like it's coming over and down towards your toes. Try not to scrunch the toes. Release, release, release. Keep those quads active. And then here's what I meant, like, so I'm going to really stay in flexion here, picking up from my hamstring, stay in flexion, stay in flexion, stay in flexion, stay in flexion, stay in flexion. Now start to unpeel and come all the way back up. We've got to do 15 of these. If it's the first time, stick with like about 5 or 10. That's still really good enough. Just take this exercise really nice and slow, but specific. All the way down. Lifting up into my quads. And then rolling back up. Amazing. These are called standing spine rolls. This exercise is called standing windmills. I sometimes do these against the wall, but today we're going to do them freestanding, just on your mat. What you're going to do is take your feet slightly wider than hip distance, very slightly, not much. And then what you're going to do is you're going to start off with your hands out in a sort of T position, fingers really nice and wide. Now what this exercise is going to help us do is going to build mobility and really sort of good alignment in your body laterally, which means from the side. And what this helps us do is it really sort of takes us out of this problem where a lot of us are losing this kind of fight with gravity and like almost face planting, or for some of us we have like weighting issues. We've kind of been told one leg is shorter than the other. And in reality, for 99% of people, that's not true. It's simply that your pelvis, your foot, your hips, they can't stabilize. So you literally put more body weight into one leg than the other. So this exercise is really a functional drill that's going to help you start to build this confidence, but also really good alignment and posture, and generally like help you develop good mobility in the sides of your body, and therefore help you sort of overcome a lot of these postural dysfunctions that you might be experiencing. Standing with your feet slightly sort of wider than hip distance, bring your arms in T position, fingers wide. Now what you're going to do first, before you start to laterally sort of move, is I want you to feel like you're picking up your quads, right? So you're really nice and strong in your legs. You're not hyperextending the knees and duck butting. You're simply standing really nice and tall by pushing the feet down into the ground. This is called ground reaction force. If you find that difficult, could be an indication of foot or some sort of lower body dysfunction, so just be aware of that. And then with your fingers really nice and wide, I want you to feel like someone's pulling both your arms in opposite directions. So really create some sort of equal and opposite reaction sort of in your arms here. And then from here, what you're not going to do is just passively sort of flop the arms like this. Okay, so this is not a floppy exercise. It's not what I call loosey-goosey. You're really trying to sort of keep those arms in that sort of opposite sort of spread. As you reach this right arm down and away from the body, I want you to feel like someone's reaching the left arm or pulling the left arm up towards the ceiling. Keep the body, keep the legs engaged, release the right ear. And then really lift from the side body there to really switch sides and go over to the side. So reach the left arm down. At the same time, you're reaching the right arm up. Release the left ear. And you're not shifting away from the hip, right? So you've got to keep the hips really nice and stacked over the ankle lines here. And now from here, feel like there's a pull down into this lateral side for you to shift over to the right side. These are called standing windmills, and you're going to try and do about 15. Each side is 1 repetition. You can even reduce that to 10 if this is the first time that you're doing a spine functional drill. I also love these as a warm-up, really, really good. Very sort of dynamic and superb for a really good warm-up, especially if you play something like golf, racket sport. Really good for yoga before and after, like maybe some really intense back bending, but generally really good exercise to be using as a warm-up. This exercise is called static extension position. The setup of this exercise, as always, is really, really important, but the position of your knees will matter in allowing the body to come into extension. So think of a body that's really heavily flexed, something that happens over time when you sit a lot and you kind of, you're in a sort of hunched over position. This exercise is designed to reverse that and to release really tight psoas muscles and shoulders and a trunk that's stuck in flexion. So first you're going to start with your hands, not wider than your shoulders. And you're going to like splay the fingers so that your palms are wide, and you're going to keep turning your elbows with force forwards. And you're going to start this exercise in a quadruped position, which is on all fours. And you're going to need the tops of your feet into the ground. Now, for the whole of this exercise, please make sure that your shoulders stay over the line of the wrists, not too far forwards, not too far back. Otherwise, you will feel the compression in your wrists. And then keep your head sort of lifted just to start with as you walk the knees slightly behind your hip line. So you can see here that my knees are behind the line of my hips. This is going to create a load in your shoulders, and that will then, the position of your knees will allow you to then release the pelvis. You see how I'm creating a nice big arch in my lower back by pulling the tailbone towards the pubic bone, towards the floor. At the same time, I'm pushing the hands into the ground. Elbows are turned forwards, and if you can, you may want to walk your feet a little bit further back just to be able to get a little bit more extension and a little bit more load in the shoulders. Then you're going to sink your chest down between the shoulders to feel the shoulders coming together behind you, and you're going to drop your head. You're going to hold this position with the tops of the feet active into the ground for a duration of 2 minutes. This is your static extension position. I can feel my left leg shaking. I can feel my left arm quivering. So lots happening here, and I'm completely relaxing my abdominals. This exercise is called the thread the needle lateral release. And what we're doing in this exercise is we are releasing all the muscles that could be compensating or dysfunctional in the side of our body line. So for some of us, we're going to feel this in the IT band region, coming up into the hip. For some of us, we're going to feel it in the QL mostly. Some of us, we're going to feel it across the chest, into the mid-back, into the spine, and across the shoulder blades, as well as the pec muscles. Now, what happens in this, in some of our bodies is we tend to have a compensated position in our pelvis, which then really causes us to have dysfunctional or compensating shoulders. Conversely, a lot of us have dysfunctions in our shoulders, and therefore we can't really access the muscles in the side of the body to hold us upright. So in this exercise, what we're doing is we're releasing all of these muscles in the hope that when you come out of the exercise, you feel less slumpy and a little bit more extended. So we're going to come by sitting on in a sort of kneeling position, if you like, with the tops of the feet into the ground. Then what you're going to need to do with a block, you're going to put the block slightly longer than an arm's distance away, just outside the left knee here. So we're about 10 degrees off to the left side of the mat here with the block. And what you're going to do is you're going to thread this left arm underneath you over to the right side of the body. Keep the feet active. So the feet are basically holding you down onto the ground. Keep stretching that left arm up underneath the right arm. And then what you're going to need to do here is really feel like you're pushing the back of the left arm into the ground and rounding your shoulder just a little bit. Once you're there, I want you to reach the right arm for the block that you've just placed over to the left side, and I want you to breathe and hold. It's intense, and you've got to make sure that that block is not too close towards the body. And all I want you to do here is breathe. You're going to hold this for 1 minute. Fingers of the right palm are spread. And release, and you continue for your 1 minute. For the opposite side, I'll demo a front-on view, just so you get a better angle. So this time I'm threading my right arm underneath my left. So the block will need to be just outside the line of my right knee, like so, and about an arm's distance away, maybe more, and I'll adjust that once I get into the stretch. So from here, I've got my knees and my feet in a hip distance position. Feet are untucked, so the tops of the feet are into the ground. And I'm going to reach this right arm under. And then I'm going to reach the left hand for the block. Sort of push it away just to lengthen into that left arm. Base of the palm is on top of the block. Both my feet are active. And I'm feeling like I'm trying to round the shoulders here to breathe. That is thread the needle lateral release. It is chef's kiss, if you ask me.